Chapter 2 Roast Mutton. Bilbo sprang up, threw on his dressing gown, and hurried into the dining room. No one was there, only the remains of a hurried and enormous breakfast. The place was in dreadful disorder. The kitchen was piled high with dirty dishes, and every single one of his pans had been pressed into service. The thought of having to wash such a mountain of crockery was so real that he was forced to believe that last night's gathering had not been some nightmare, though in his heart he still wished it were. On the other hand, he was pleased to find that his guests had gone off without needing him, and hadn't even bothered to wake him. Though not a word of thanks from the lot of them, he thought bitterly. Yet a small pang of disappointment stirred in him, and he was surprised at his own disappointment. "Don't be a fool, Bilbo Baggins," he told himself. "Dragons and fairy tale nonsense are not for someone of your age." He tied on his apron, lit the fire, set the kettle boiling, and soon had the dishes washed. Afterwards, he sat down to a cozy breakfast in the dining room, and was just getting ready to tidy the kitchen. The sun was high, the front door still stood wide open, and a warm spring breeze blew into the house. Bilbo whistled merrily, and forgot all about the previous day. He sat by the window, prepared to enjoy a second breakfast, when suddenly Gandalf appeared. "My dear fellow," said the wizard, "when do you mean to set out? Or do you still talk of getting up early? Breakfast at this hour? It is 10:30. They have left you a message, for they could wait no longer." "A message? What message?" asked Bilbo, suddenly uneasy. "Bless me, what a mess," said Gandalf. "Haven't even dusted the mantelpiece yet, have you?" "Mantelpiece? Haven't I had enough with washing the dishes of 14 people? If you had dusted the mantelpiece, you would have found this under the clock." Gandalf held up a note on Bilbo's own notepaper. Bilbo read, "Thorin and Company to Burglar Bilbo, greeting. Many thanks for your hospitality. Our offer of professional assistance has been accepted. Terms: 1/14 share of total profits, if any. All traveling expenses guaranteed in any event. Funeral expenses to be defrayed by us or our representatives, unless otherwise arranged. We are now on our way to make necessary preparations. Meet us at the Green Dragon Inn, Bywater, at 11 o'clock sharp. Trusting in your punctuality. Yours respectfully, Thorin and Company. 10 minutes to go." "You'll have to run," said Gandalf. "But," began Bilbo. "No time for buts," snapped the wizard. "But still," Bilbo tried again. "No still. Off you go." Later, Bilbo could never remember how exactly he rushed out into the street. He had no hat, no walking stick, no money, not even a handkerchief. He left his second breakfast half finished, the washing up undone, thrust his keys into Gandalf's hand, and bolted down the lane like mad. He tore over the fields, past the mill, across the bridge, and a mile or so beyond, until he was breathless, sweaty, and red in the face. Just as the clock struck 11, he stumbled into Bywater, and realized, to his horror, that he had forgotten his pocket handkerchief. "Hooray!" cried Balin, who was waiting at the inn door. At the same time, the other dwarfs came riding up the road. They were all mounted on sturdy little ponies, laden with all manner of baggage, sacks, skins, bundles of provisions. One small pony seemed to have been set aside for Bilbo. "Mount up, both of you! We're off!" commanded Thorin. "Wait a moment," Bilbo protested. "I've no hat, no handkerchief, and not a penny in my pocket. I only got your message at 11:15 precisely." "That won't matter much," said Dwalin kindly. "And from now on you'll find you don't need handkerchiefs or many other comforts. As for a hat, I've got a spare hood and cloak here for you." So, on a fine late April morning, they set out from the inn, ponies laden with gear. Bilbo wore a dark green hood and cloak borrowed from Dwalin. They were much too large for him and looked rather absurd. I can hardly imagine what his proper father, Bungo Baggins, would have thought of him. Bilbo's only comfort was that no one could mistake him for a dwarf. He had no beard, after all. They had hardly gone far when Gandalf rode up, splendid on his great white horse. He had brought Bilbo a whole bundle of pocket handkerchiefs, a tobacco pouch, and his favorite long pipe. And so they set out cheerfully together. All day they sang and told tales, pausing only for food. Not as often as Bilbo would have liked, but still he began to feel that adventures might not be so very bad after all. At first they passed through the well-tilled lands of the Hobbits, pleasant country of a hard-working folk. The roads were good. Sometimes they met other dwarves or busy farmers. Then the lands grew stranger. The people spoke with odd accents, and their songs were unfamiliar to Bilbo. Soon they came into wilderness. No inns, no friendly folk, the roads rougher and the hills rising dark ahead, some crowned with ancient castles that looked sinister in the distance. The weather turned cold and wet, the company grew weary, and they were forced to sleep wherever they could find shelter. "June is nearly upon us," muttered Bilbo one damp evening, trudging at the rear of the party along a muddy track. Tea time was long past. The rain poured down, his cloak dripped steadily, the ponies stumbled, and the hobbit longed for his snug hole at home with the kettle singing on the hearth. He would often dream of that scene afterwards. The dwarfs plodded on, never once looking back, as if they had already forgotten their small companion. Darkness fell swiftly in a deep valley. The wind shook the willows along a swollen river rushing down from the hills. The moon peeped weakly through ragged clouds as Thorin grumbled about supper and the difficulty of finding a dry camp. Only then did they notice that Gandalf had vanished. He had been with them until now, eating, talking, laughing more than anyone, but he was gone. "Just when a wizard would have been most useful," sighed Dori and Nori, who, like Bilbo, cared most about proper meals. Reluctantly, the company decided to camp where they were. They had never camped before, though they knew they must get used to it now, especially with the misty mountains ahead. That dismal, wet evening was their true beginning. They crept beneath trees, where it was somewhat drier, though cold drops pattered from the leaves. Fire-making proved impossible. The wood was damp, and though dwarves are skilled in kindling flames in almost any weather, even Oin and Gloin, the masters of the art, could not manage it. Suddenly, one pony, spooked for no reason, broke loose and bolted into the river. Philly and Keely nearly drowned trying to save it, and much of their baggage was swept away. Worse still, most of the food had been packed on that pony. Thus the travelers were left with a miserable supper, and the prospect of an even worse breakfast. They sat in the dark, gloomy and miserable, wet as drowned rats, muttering to themselves. Oin and Gloin were still trying to light a fire, but soon fell to quarreling. Bilbo thought wretchedly that adventures were not, after all, the same as a pleasant May walk under the stars. Suddenly Balin, who was on watch, gave a shout. "Fire! Look, there's fire!" Not far away lay a dark hill, covered with brush and trees. Among the thick undergrowth a red, cheerful glow could indeed be seen. A fire that looked very much like a campfire or blazing torches. The dwarves turned at once to argument. Some said, "Yes," others, "No." A few insisted they must go and see. After all, what could be better than a wretched supper, a worse breakfast, and a whole night in wet clothes? Others were sure it was folly. "This land is strange, and much too near the mountains. Few ever set foot here. Old maps are no longer to be trusted. The ways are broken and unsafe. Some say there is a king in these parts. Better not meddle, if we wish to keep out of trouble." "But there are 14 of us," one reminded them. "And where is Gandalf?" another asked. Then every dwarf took up the question in turn, like a chorus. The rain began to pour down harder. Oin and Gloin started to fight. That was the last straw. "But we do have a burglar," the dwarves said together. So they crept toward the light, slowly, trying to make no sound. The ponies led after them. They climbed the hill and melted into the shadows of the trees. They looked about, but found no path leading to any farm or house. Careful though they were, twigs cracked, branches snapped, and heavy breathing sounded loud in the dark as they pushed their way through. Suddenly the fire shone clear before them through the leaves. "Now it's the burglar's turn," they whispered, meaning Bilbo. "You must go on ahead and find out whose fire it is, and whether it's safe." Thorin told the Hobbit. "Go on now. If all is well, come back and tell us. If not, come back if you can. And if you can't, hoot twice like a barn owl and once like a screech owl, and we will do our best to help." Bilbo had no choice but to go, without time to explain that he could neither hoot like an owl nor fly like a bat. Still, hobbits can move silently through woods, quite unseen. They are very proud of this skill. More than once Bilbo smiled disdainfully at the splashing and puffing noises of the dwarves behind him. "I can assure you that neither you nor I would have heard a sound in such stormy darkness, even if a whole company with ponies had passed at our feet." As for Bilbo, he slipped forward noiselessly toward the red glow. Not even a cautious wood squirrel pricked up its ears at his passing. Soon he was beside the fire, safe and unseen, and he peered out. 3 huge trolls sat there, roasting mutton on spits of wood over a great fire fed with oak logs. Now and then they licked the grease from their fingers. The smell was delicious. Beside them was a barrel of ale, and every so often they drank deep from their mugs. Trolls they were, beyond any doubt. Even Bilbo, who had lived a quiet, country life, guessed it at once from their lumpy, mossy skin, their clumsy shapes, their great thick legs, and above all from their rough, very rough talk. "Mutton yesterday, mutton today, and blimey if it won't be mutton again tomorrow," one troll grumbled. "Wish we could get some man flesh," another said with relish. "And that wooden-head Bill here was fair pleased to bring us to this place. Ale's running low too." He nudged Bill's elbow just as the latter raised his mug. Bill choked and spluttered. "Shut your mouth," he roared when he had caught his breath. "Want all the men in these parts to hear you and crawl down our throats, you and Bert both? Haven't you had enough? Since we come down from the mountains we've eaten a village and a half already. Where'd you expect to find more men now?" Times are hard, so be thankful to Bill for getting you mutton. He tore a leg of mutton from the spit and wiped his mouth on his sleeve. "Yes, trolls are always like that, rude even to each other. Hearing all this, Bilbo felt he must do something at once. Either slip back and warn the others about the three great trolls who would fancy roast dwarf or pony pie, or else put his burglar's skills to the test. A true burglar would, of course, have picked the troll's pockets, always worth doing, and perhaps stolen the mutton and the ale, vanishing without a trace. A more practical burglar would have driven a knife straight into their hearts before they could blink. What a fine night's work that would have been! Bilbo knew it. He had read of such deeds in many a tale, though he had never done or seen them himself. Now he felt anxious and disgusted with the whole affair. He wished himself 100 miles away. Yet he was unwilling to go back to Thorin and company empty-handed. He hesitated in the dark. Of all the burglarious acts to choose, pocket-picking seemed the least dangerous. He slipped behind Bill, who had just taken another draft while Bert and Tom turned to the barrel again. Bilbo summoned all his courage and thrust his small hand into the troll's enormous pocket. Inside was a purse, as big as a sack to him. "Ha!" he whispered, congratulating himself as he drew it out carefully. "This is only the beginning." Indeed it was. Troll purses are always enchanted, and this one was no exception. Who are you?" it squeaked the moment it left the pocket. Bill spun around and grabbed Bilbo by the neck before he could dart behind the tree. "Blimey, Bert! Look what I've caught!" he cried. "What is it?" The others came over to see. "Dunno. What you think?" Bill asked. "Bilbo Baggins, Berg a Hobbit." Bilbo stammered, struggling, wondering how to hoot like an owl before he was strangled. "A Hobbit?" the trolls repeated, alarmed. Trolls are slow-witted and always suspicious of anything new. "And what's a Hobbit doing in my pocket?" Bill demanded. "Shall I cook him?" asked Tom. "You might try," said Bert, seizing a spit. "Not worth the trouble," Bill said. "I'm full already. Skin and bone, that's all. Maybe there's more of his sort about. Could make a pie," Bert added, peering at Bilbo's hairy toes and shaking them. "Oh, you? Plenty more of you wandering about the woods, eh?" "Yes, lots," Bilbo blurted, before realizing he was betraying his friends. "No, nobody at all." "What you mean?" Bert growled, holding Bilbo upside down by the hair. "I mean," Bilbo gasped, "kind sirs, don't cook me. I can cook better than I can be cooked. I'll make you a fine breakfast, far better than roasted hobbit." "Talkative little beggar," Bill grunted. He had eaten a heavy supper and drunk several mugs of beer. "Talkative little beggar, let him go. Not till he explains how lots and nobody at all mean the same thing. I won't have my throat slit in my sleep. Stick his feet in the fire till he talks." "I caught him myself," Bill protested. "You're a fat-headed fool, like I told you this morning," Bert retorted. "And you're a blockhead," Bill snapped. "Mind your tongue, Bill Huggins," shouted Bert, and he smacked Bill in the eye. Then there was a fine fight. Bert dropped Bilbo, who just managed to crawl away before he was squashed flat. The two trolls rolled and wrestled like dogs, cursing loudly in the most accurate and fitting language, while Tom tried to knock them apart with a club. This only made them angrier. Bilbo ought to have slipped away at once. But Bert had squeezed him so hard that his head swam, and he could only lie there on the edge of the firelight, dazed and gasping. Just as the brawl was raging, Balin suddenly appeared. The dwarves had heard a rumbling from afar. When Bilbo failed to return, and no sound of his alcohol was heard. Each dwarf in turn left his hiding place and crept towards the fire. No sooner had Balin stepped into the firelight than Tom gave a horrible yell. Trolls loathe everything to do with dwarves, save only roast dwarf on the spit. Bert and Bill instantly broke off fighting, shouting, "Quick, Tom! The sack!" Before Balin could so much as glimpse Bilbo in the commotion, or understand what was happening, a bag was clapped over his head, and he was thrown to the ground. "There's plenty more of him about," said Tom. "No mistaking that. No burglar hobbit here, but plenty o' dwarves. I knew it at once." "Right you are," Bert agreed. "Come out of the light now." The trolls crouched back into the shadows, sacks in hand, the very bags they used for meat and plunder. As each dwarf stepped forward, eyes widening at the sight of beer mugs, roasting meat, and half-emptied pots, whump! Down came a reeking sack over his head, and down he went. In moments, Dwalin was flung beside Balin. Philly and Keely were bundled together. Dory, Ori, and Nori tumbled in a heap. Oin and Gloin, then Bifur, then Bofer, and finally Bomber were all trussed up and dumped in a wretched row near the fire. "You just wait, curse you!" Tom growled. Bifur and Bofer had fought like madmen. Such is the nature of dwarves when cornered, but in the end even they were overcome. The last to appear was Thorin, and he was not so easily taken unawares. He came forward warily, and though he saw the legs of his companions sticking from the sacks, he needed no such warning to know things had gone ill. Standing a little way off in the dark, he called out sternly, "What's all this? Who dares bind my men?" "The trolls," Bilbo piped up. The creatures had quite forgotten him. "They're hiding in the bushes with their sacks?" "So it is you," Thorin cried, leaping into the firelight before they could spring. He seized a burning branch, and Bert caught a mighty blow across the face before he could duck. For a moment, the troll reeled out of the fight. Bilbo, too, tried to lend aid, seizing Tom's enormous leg and tugging with all his strength. But Tom only kicked him headlong into a thorn bush, while lashing a shower of embers at Thorin. Tom got a heavy crack in the mouth for his pains, out flew a front tooth, and he roared in agony. Yet even as Thorin pressed the attack, Bill slipped behind and clapped a sack over the dwarf lord's head. And with that, the fight was ended. The company lay in a sorry state, bound and bagged, stacked beside the fire, while three bruised trolls squatted nearby debating whether to roast them whole, chop them small and boil them quick, or simply sit on the bags until the dwarves were squeezed to jelly. Bilbo, clothes torn and body battered, crouched silently in the thorns, hardly daring to stir lest they hear him. It was then that Gandalf returned. But no one saw him. The trolls had at last come to agreement. They would roast the lot of them and eat at leisure. That was Bert's idea, and after long wrangling the others had consented. "No need to start roasting now. Won't be done till morning," rumbled a deep voice. Bert thought it was Bill's. "Don't keep arguing, Bill," he muttered, "or we'll waste the whole night." "Who's arguing?" snapped Bill, thinking it was Bert who had spoken. "You are?" Bert growled back. "Liar!" snarled Bill, and off they went again. After more quarreling, they resolved to chop the dwarves to bits and boil them. Out came a blackened pot and long knives. "Boiling's too much bother. Where's the water to come from? The well's a mile off," the same strange voice objected. This time Bert and Bill thought it was Tom. "Shut your trap!" they roared. "If you don't like it, fetch the water yourself. It's you two who won't stop jabbering," Tom retorted, thinking Bill had spoken. "Not me!" The brawl flared up hotter than ever, until they decided instead to sit on the sacks and mash the dwarves flat before cooking them. "Which one first?" the queer voice asked again. "That one last over there," Bert said, his face still sore from Thorin's blow. He thought Tom had spoken. "Stop muttering to yourself," Tom snapped. "But if you want that one, where is he then?" "The one with the yellow stockings," Bert answered. "Fool, he had gray ones," said the strange voice again, sounding like Bill. "I remember plain yellow," Bert insisted. "Aye, yellow it was." Bill joined in. "Then why did you say gray?" Bert demanded hotly. "I never said it, Tom did," Bill retorted. "Not I. It was you," Tom roared. "Majority rules." "Be silent," Bert declared. "Who are you talking to?" Bill shot back. "Enough." Tom and Bert bellowed together. "The night's nearly done. Let's get on with it. Dawn take you all. Stone you shall be," came the voice again, sounding like Bill's, but it was not. For just then the light grew on the hill, and birds burst into song. Bill, bending over Thorin, could not move nor speak. He had turned to stone. Bert and Tom, staring in astonishment, stiffened likewise. And so they stand to this day, save that now and then birds perch upon them. For, as you may know, trolls must hide underground before dawn. If the sun catches them, they return to the stone of which they were made, and move never again. So it befell Tom, Bert, and Bill. "Excellent," said Gandalf, stepping from behind a tree, and he held Bilbo down from the thorns at last. Then Bilbo understood. It was the wizard's voice, cast among the trolls, that had set them squabbling until the sun rose and destroyed them. Next came the business of cutting open the sacks. The dwarves, half suffocated and in a vile temper, were little pleased to hear how nearly they had been roasted, chopped, and mashed. Bilbo had to tell his tale twice before they would listen calmly. "A fine time for a burglary lesson," grumbled Fat Bomber. "All we wanted was fire and food." "Well, at least you've got them now, and dearly earned," said Gandalf. "But you waste time. Surely you realize these trolls must have a cave nearby to hide from the sun. Let's have a look." Sure enough, following the great stony footprints, they found a huge stone door set in the hillside among the trees. Push as they might, they could not open it, nor did Gandalf's spells avail. "Will this do, perhaps?" said Bilbo, producing a massive key he had picked up during the scuffle. "I found it on the ground while they were fighting." "What on earth kept you from showing that sooner?" the others cried. Gandalf slipped it into the lock. With a heavy thrust, the door swung inward. A foul stench met them. Bones scattered across the floor, half-rotten food littered about, and in heaps among the filth were the trolls' hoards. Piles of copper buttons, jars of gold, and racks of plundered gear. On the walls hung garments, far too small for trolls, but doubtless stripped from their victims. Swords of many shapes and sizes were there too. Two in particular caught their eyes, for their jeweled hilts and rich scabbards. Gandalf and Thorin each claimed one, while Bilbo found a knife in a leather sheath, a dagger to trolls, but to the Hobbit it was a short sword. "These blades are well forged," said Gandalf, drawing his halfway and peering close. "No troll make, nor the craft of men today." We shall know more when their runes are read. Let's be rid of this stink, Billy urged. And they carried off what food was still wholesome, a cask of beer, and the jars of gold. Hungry as they were, they made a hearty breakfast and thought little of dining from troll stores, for their own supplies were nearly spent. With bread and cheese, meat to roast, and plenty of ale, they ate their fill and then slept long into the afternoon. Later, they packed the gold on their ponies and buried it securely by the roadside, under dwarvish spells of concealment, hoping one day to return for it. Then they mounted up and rode eastward again. "Where had you gone, Master Wizard?" Thorin asked Gandalf as they rode. "Only scouting ahead," Gandalf replied. "And why did you return just in time?" "Because I am used to looking back," the wizard said. "Indeed. But tell us more plainly," Thorin pressed. "I had gone ahead to test the road. It is hard and dangerous, and I meant to seek more provisions, for our store is slight. I had not gone far when I met two of Elrond's people, hurrying in fear of trolls. They warned me that 3 had come down from the mountains and now lurked in the woods, not far off the road. They have plagued the countryside and waylaid travelers. At once I felt I must turn back. I saw firelight behind me and hastened thither. The rest you know. But beware! Be more cautious next time, or we shall get nowhere at all." "Thank you indeed," said Thorin.